Hey, Garage Gym athletes, before we get started, I wanted to let you know we are upping our Instagram game so we can better educate the industry. The goal is to drown out the influencers in bro science that is social media. If you want to help, screenshot this podcast episode and tag us at Garage Gym Athlete and a friend in your Instagram stories. We'd love to connect, and we will even be sending some free merch to a select few who actually take us up on this 15-second task. So go get it done, and I look forward to connecting with you. All right, now to the show. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Joe Courtney. What's up, Joe?
How's it going, man? How many times do we have red shirt day?
I know. I only have two color shirts. I have a red one and a black one. Well, I have more than two shirts, just so we're clear, but they fit
just
in
share
two
the
categories.
same color.
They're red or black, or dark. But anyway, let's get right into it this week. This is interesting. So this is a paper. It is not a study, but I think it shines a lot of light on how bad the current situation is. I feel like I've been trying to shine a light on it and talk about it all the time. But the fact that we're having scientific papers come out, this one came out in May of 2022 of this year, kind of saying the same stuff means it's getting pretty bad and people are getting pretty frustrated, like within the industry. So the title of this paper is Baseless Claims in Pseudoscience in Health and Wellness, a call to action for the sports, exercise, and nutrition science community. And this is one of those ones where I just want to read part of the abstract because I feel like they sum it up really well. And for me to do anything else would just make it worse. And so I'm going to go over part of the abstract. I'll read it to the best of my ability. And then you and I can kind of dive in from there, things that we took away. Let's see. It says, the global health and wellness industry has an estimated value of $4 trillion. Profits derived from health club memberships, exercise classes, diets, supplements, alternative therapies, and thousands of other products and services that are purported to improve health, recovery, and/or sports performance. The industry has expanded at an alarming rate, far outstripping the capacity of federal bodies to regulate the market and protect consumer interest. As a result, many products are sold on baseless or exaggerated claims, feigned science legitimacy, and questionable evidence of safety and efficacy. This article is a consciousness raiser, which I thought was a cool thing to call it. The implications of the mismatch between extraordinary health and performance claims and the unextraordinary scientific evidence are discussed. Specifically, we explore how pseudoscience and so-called quick fix interventions undermine initiatives aimed at evoking long-term behavior change, impede the ongoing pursuit of sports performance, and lead to serious downstream consequences for clinical practice. Moreover, pseudoscience in health and wellness, if left unchecked and unchallenged, may have profound implications for the reputation of exercise science as a discipline. This is a call to action to unify exercise scientists around the world to more proactively challenge baseless claims in pseudoscience in the commercial health and wellness industry. Furthermore, we must shoulder the burden of ensuring that the next generation of exercise scientists are sufficiently skilled to distinguish from science and pseudoscience and information from mis or disinformation. Better population health, sports performance, and the very reputation of the discipline may depend on it. So, awesome abstract. They do get into some different stuff in the article itself, talking about alternative therapies, so short-term quick fix interventions, as well as what was it called? CAMS, complementary and alternative medicine practices. And then they have their big call to action. So it's a very short paper. It's only 5 pages in total, and a lot of like 1.5 of those pages are references, and one of the pages is abstract I just read. So you got 3 pages to get through. I highly recommend everybody go check this out if you're into the health and fitness industry at all. But let's dive into it a little bit more, Joe. What did you think about this paper?
Yeah, so I like that that he broke it down into four sections. It is an opinion paper, but there's a lot of citing of other articles. So it's almost like um, a it's almost like he did his own a meta analysis of his own opinion, sort of thing, which is kind of interesting and kind of cool. So it's not just like a New York Times article where you just throw it up there for entertainment's sake. Actually, there's a lot of articles or actual studies cited, and when he does those, I like those, and I like that there's broken down into four sections. I don't know if you just want to go section by section for each of those four, because there's different ways to talk about each. I think. Um,
Yeah, we can do that. I think. Did you want to start with the introduction? Because I feel like that's kind of. Did you have anything to pull
um,
from that? Or you
I
want
don't
to
think
start with?
so.
Yeah, so we'll start
I,
with two widespread implications, and then the sub chapters. Oh, you're talking about the four within that. Okay,
yeah,
I
yeah,
got you. Okay, so the baseless claims in pseudoscience and health and wellness industry undermine initiatives aimed at evoking long-term behavior change.
yeah. I liked
I
part
feel
of
like I
this.
just covered this when we were talking about eggs in the previous podcast. Is like, why you got trying to make everything so damn easy? Just make it
Yeah,
hard and be better.
yeah. Another thing they pulled from that is that health and wellness marketing is designed to exploit innate weaknesses in consumer decision making by promoting short term quick fix products. I definitely agree with that. That's kind of what marketing is aimed to do. They're aimed to sell, and if it's quick fix, then they can sell more because in a few months maybe they can sell it to you again or something. The only I'll have my own little caveats or things to say about, like, there are buts in this circumstance to where a lot of times, or there are some times to where a short term fix, somebody who wants to start fixing their life, fixing their health, is that short term fix could be a catalyst. They could do that, see a little bit of progress, and then they'll level off quick because it's a quick fix, short term thing, and then they might go, okay, I know this isn't working forever. It didn't last long. I need to go find something better and something bigger. So while I do agree that marketing and a lot of baseless claims in pseudoscience does lead to just short, like, gets people off of the long term behavior changes track. The short term ones can be the first step in that change. However, it's still one thing to know is that whenever you see claims, a lot of the claims with marketing and anything that's being sold, like, for the most part, especially in nutrition, is that it's normally in the short term and it's just to get you to purchase something quick, versus actually making changes.
Yeah, and I agree with you. There generally needs to be a spark if you're looking to start something new. So if that is, I wrote about this a long time ago. I called the new shoe effect. Is like if buying a new pair of shoes helps you run 3 miles today, 5 miles today, 20 miles this week, whatever it is, and it was mainly because you bought these new shoes, that's great. But you can't continue to do that over and over again, right? Like either it's going to not be as exciting when you buy a new pair of shoes, or you're just not going to care as much. So every fire needs a spark, but you can't have a fire of sparks. You have to have something that will continue to keep the fire going. And so that's when we get into intrinsic motivation and really finding out why you want to be fit and healthy for the long term. But yeah, I agree. Sometimes you need that spark to get going.
Yeah, and some of the how they close out that section, some of those studies that he cited, um, were that data shows that fad diets are largely ineffective. That's one study, and have little benefit on heart health. One other study.
Mm-hmm.
By encouraging yo-yo dieting, weight cycling, fad diets can lead to increased morbidity. Two studies on that one, and risk of life dissatisfaction and psychopathology. Cool. Binge eating, food restrictions, stuff like that, and another three or four studies on that. So it's not just he's just writing out claims and fads and trends. He's actually like pulling from these studies and finding these things about how these short term fixes, and what he's saying that is don't really they kind of pull away from actual long term health benefits. But if it gets your foot in the door, and as long as people are realizing that and seeking further help afterwards, then it can still be good. But it's yeah, again, a good how do they word it? What would you say in the beginning? A consciousness something?
Consciousness razor, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, and I think so. My takeaway from that was he does list like, and he you can click on the studies or look at the references and go out and check out. Okay, fad diets according to this study are ineffective. Yo-yo dieting is bad according to this study. Blah blah blah, and he links to all these other studies, which is cool. My big takeaway was when you look at those studies that the effectiveness of a diet does not mean it's what you should be doing. Like weight loss, like if you're like, I go on this diet, I lost 10 pounds. That does just because you achieve the desired result doesn't mean that's what you should do. And I think that that's hard for people to wrap their heads around because when you have a fact, you can't. How can someone argue against your experience anymore? And they can't. So if I'm talking to someone and I'm saying I don't think you should be doing the carnivore diet, if that's my opinion, and someone's like, I lost 20 pounds on the carnivore diet, you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm like, yes, let's look into why you lost that weight. What was your diet before? What changes have you made? Was it specifically the carnivore diet? But it doesn't matter to the person, who's like super bought into that. But just because something is effective doesn't mean that's how you should be doing it. You have to find out what the mechanism behind it is, and then also see if you compound that at some sort of exponential rate. If I do this every day for the next 30 years, is it still okay? And if it's not, then you have to reassess how you do things. And that was my big takeaway from those. It's like just because something is effective doesn't mean that's what should be done.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like fasting. Like people who start fasting, they won't eat for 16 to 18 hours, do their one or two bigger meals, and then be like, "Hey, all this stuff is amazing. I lost weight. I feel great from fasting." And I'm just like, well, it's not the fact that you don't eat for that long. It's probably the fact that you're eating less. Like your total calorie intake is just less, and therefore you could pretty much stretch that out, and it'd still be somewhat of the same. So yeah, next.
Yeah. So the next one was
This is a bit shorter.
this is the short-term quick fix interventions.
Yep. Short term quick fix interventions may impede
The
the ongoing
ongoing.
pursuit of sports performance. The only thing I had about this one is, and what they mentioned as well, is that people do things to treat symptoms and not problems. And this is probably only going to ring true for, athletes and people that are active. And, when you get those small niggling injuries that, something's hurting, something's tweaking, and you're kind of only putting a band-aid over it and not actually treating what's wrong, you're just kind of getting by so that you can keep using it instead of like taking a step back. And that's what we've said a lot, even lately, that we've talked about, actually having to take a step back, swallow your pride, and fix something versus just, oh, I just got to push on through. I think I can do this. I'll be fine. I'll just, rub some dirt on it and be okay.
So when I read this, I first had a critique, and I was like, because he's calling a lot of the things he calls them placebo mediated products, and he said that
Yeah.
i.e. those with no active ingredients, not that they have no active ingredients. There's a caveat to that, whose effects can be attributed solely to the expectation of the benefit attendant psychobiological mediational process. Anyway, what he's saying is, at first I had a critique because I was like, this guy thinks that people create supplements for the placebo effect. I was like, most people are creating supplements because they think that they actually work, but is like an intellectual flex because he's going one step further past all that, and he's basically saying if you make supplements, you're creating placebo. Like that's what you're doing, and that's what I've been saying for a long time. Is like when these supplement manufacturers say like, oh, we have turmeric in here and helps with inflammation, helps you live longer. Yeah, it's like, but it's a milligram and we need 2 grams. We need 2,000 times the amount that you have in there. But you're saying that you have the effectiveness or whatever because you threw it in there. And I could name probably 5 products right now that I know do that kind of crap that people on the podcast right now probably drink, take, or love because the person on Instagram is super popular and they think that they're a cool guy. And that's the only reason. But I just thought at first it was a critique, and then it turned into like, wow, that was like a intellectual flex because they're basically saying anyone who's creating these supplements, you're really just having people use the placebo effect to increase the effectiveness of your product because there is real no data supporting the fact that your amount of whatever you're putting in your product is going to work. And I thought that was awesome. What an awesome way to
Yeah.
phrase it.
Yeah.
All right, the next one. Some commercial products and services are not only unproven, but also potentially dangerous. This may cause serious downstream consequences for clinical practice. And this is where he gets into complementary and alternative medicine. Cam, but I don't know. I kind of started to disagree with him here a little bit because he's like,
Same.
like
It
chiropractic care, acupuncture, homeopathy, Reiki, cupping, um, all these things. And I kind of get what he's saying, but then he got real vague without a citation, unless it was this number 36. But then he was like, online databases have documented nearly 400,000 deaths and approximately $3 billion of economic damages due to the use of unproven, unregulated alternative therapies, often in place of legitimate medical practice. And so there is a citation there, but I'd have to dive into that citation a lot more because does that citation specifically saying that there are 400,000 deaths a year that lead or come from chiropractic care? I think that he's making a jump. He made a jump within the same paragraph or section of the article where he's saying, throwing out words like cupping, acupuncture, chiropractic care, and then not saying directly, but saying a few sentences later has led to 400,000 deaths. And I'm like, if we were to tease out that other article in its entirety, you probably wouldn't be saying that chiropractic care causes 400,000 deaths per year, because if that was the case, people wouldn't be doing that. They wouldn't be lining up to get their back cracked, right? Like it just
mhm.
wouldn't happen.
Yeah, to me this one read like a doctor is annoyed that he's losing patients to
Exactly.
homeopathic type
Same.
care and other alternative medicines. And to me, it was a very big broad stroke and very generalizing of certain things that you do. And like, I love acupuncture. I've had cupping, and both of them have worked great. But I think what he's trying to say is that like there are those, there's those chiropractors that have given chiropractors a bad name. That's like, hey, you have gut issues, just come and get your back cracked. Hey, is your ankle screwed up? Just come and get your back cracked. Like things like that. And then like I don't know if it's mentioned on there, but like essential oils, the dogmatic essential oil crowd that it's like if you have any kind of health problem, just come and you just need certain essential oils and it's gonna fix you. And I just don't think he put enough energy or looked at enough studies to like specifically call certain things out or like cite how ridiculous some things get. And I think that's kind of what it's about, is that like, okay, realize that to me, acupuncture, I've had great results with mobility and soft tissue stuff. That's exactly what I use it for. I haven't gone there to use it for, healing my gut or, they can cure tension headaches, but like, I'm not going to go there for serious medical issues. And I think that's kind of what he was trying to say, but there's still a place for them. So some of those things, like I definitely believe in a lot of natural, like medicines and certain things, natural practices versus going to a doctor and for certain stuff, but just don't get ridiculous with it. Is what is what I'm going to say to take away from that part.
Yeah. And so what he links to there is a website called What's the Harm? So you can check it out at what'stheharm.net. And then it goes into all these different things. And that's why I said I'd have to go into each one of these. Like I can click on acupuncture here under medical, and then it's like they're just stories. So it's like okay, Sean Miller, age 36, from Toronto, Ontario, in Canada, in the grips of severe depression. He tried many treatments. Included in this were acupuncture, vitamin regimens, and a shop's worth of naturopathic remedies, none of which worked. Conventional medical procedures called DPS eventually cured him. And then you can even read more about this. Um, and so anyway, I just think that this was his weakest reference because
Hmm.
he's not linking to science there. You think that he is because it's a citation, but he actually just he linked out to anecdotal stories about things not working. Like that was I don't like to just take papers and be like, oh yeah, this is awesome because I agree with it. That was weak on his part, but he did have an amazing zinger in the same paragraph before we move on. It said high level athletes and so-called fitness influencers who use alternative therapies may be compounding the problem by deliberately or inadvertently disseminating dis or misinformation, indeed on the basis that they might be perceived as authorities in health and wellness. Many revered athletes with large social media followings are considered to have pioneered population trends in the use of CAM. And I think this is true with things like cold exposure. Like where were the thousands of people hopping in cold water on Instagram like 10 years ago? Like it just was, you didn't see it. And now it's like a part of every fitness influencer's morning routine, right? And again, I have one. Like you can make fun of me there. Like I enjoy it, but I in no way try to make claims about it. Like it's this amazing thing and it's changed my life. Absolutely not. I don't even feel that way. You know what has changed my life though? Working out consistently for like 2 decades, every single week. That's been a huge one. Having a relatively clean diet, probably for the last 15 years. That's been great. Sleeping 8 hours per night, like that's been huge. Those are some things that I can definitely say have been game changers for me, but not taking athletic greens every day or hopping in cold water or getting in the sauna. Like, no, those are auxiliary. They're not the thing. And so you see this all the time with influencers, and we've talked about it a lot, but they have to be more fringe to get more followers and to get more people like invested in what they do. And that's typically where you see it at the extreme. So you see it on the carnivore side because that's about as extreme as you can get in one direction. Then you see it on vegan side because it's the most extreme you get in the other direction, opposite of carnivore. And that's where generally the crazy people come out because they're trying to take one study or some sort of misinformation. They're intentionally twisting and turning to their beliefs, and then once someone thinks that there's a scientific study behind it, it's like over. It's like, oh, okay, well, that's it. Must work, but it's not how
Yeah,
it works.
and uh, social media is also feeds right into part of the influencer problem. Like the people who are doing it are a problem, but also social media itself, because we've touched on this in the past, algorithms and having to constantly post no matter what's going on. So no matter what they're doing, they have to find something to post about. So if they go and get cupping done, because that's just something to do. It's content. Cupping looks cool. It looks interesting. People are. They want to see it happen, and it's like, oh, great, cupping works. It's awesome because I follow this person and they're doing it. But like, maybe they're working out 3 times a day and they just need that little bit extra, but you don't, because you're not doing that sort of level. You're working out for an hour a day and you're just doing a lot lower level stuff. So, more about that context. Just people always happen to post stuff, and yeah.
Yeah, and it's just getting worse and worse. Um, all right, so then the last section here before his call to action is baseless claims in pseudoscience and health and wellness directly affect the reputation of exercise science as a discipline. And this is one that I agree with. People have probably heard me say I hate the fitness industry. Um, and this is why, because it's becoming embarrassing to try and tell, someone you just meet that you're in the fitness industry, um, because it casts this shadow of crap on you that you, like me personally, I have nothing to do with. I have nothing to do with everything that we're talking about. I'm not trying to, push out incorrect information. I'm not trying to hop on any bandwagons. And our lackluster approach has us, probably not as popular as we could be, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But because of how the industry is at large, when you look at a magazine, when you're standing in line in the grocery store, or you do just watch reels on Instagram, um, you realize that the fitness, health, nutrition industry are awful, and there are a lot of people doing good things, but there are a lot of people doing some awful things. And going back to your point of like you mentioned something about you know influence the algorithm and influencers having to post more and like all this other crap, right? But I think it's really weird. I don't know if this is true. So I don't do TikTok
Nope.
yet. I'll probably get big into TikTok soon. Like I don't know. I'm thinking like I got some dance moves that people have never seen. And anyway, kidding. But this is what I've been told. I don't know if it's true because I don't watch enough TikTok. I've been told that so TikTok was started in China, which I think is truth. Again, I haven't looked any of this up, but I
No,
heard that
that's why people in the military aren't supposed to be on TikTok. Just something to the side, because they, yeah,
yeah, they're
have
getting all the
propaganda.
data. But I heard that the Chinese use TikTok to teach, and they're sharing like mathematical problems and engineering and new ways to solve problems. And it's this largely education-based platform in China. But in America, we're like doing dances and like all this stupid crap. Um, some people say the Chinese are actually doing that on purpose. I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy. I could very well just believe that the base population of America is that's what they want. I'll just go ahead and be comfortable with that being the truth. Um, but yeah, isn't that just unfortunate if we're talking about algorithms? Like, wouldn't it be awesome if we had Instagram Reels and TikTok, and all it was doing was the algorithm was flooding education-based things for people to get smarter with money and starting a business, their health, nutrition. What an amazing world we would have. But instead, we have people doing
lip
dances
syncing and
and
dances.
yeah. So
There's a trend, part of TikTok. Again, I don't know about. I've never been on TikTok, but I've seen people post and share stuff about like things learned on TikTok hashtag kind of thing, and they do like very small little fun things or that people test out and do that are kind of like sped up. But I think that's like a very much a minority of it. The rest are just
oh
like
yeah.
dances and parodies.
Yeah. So anyway,
So
so I went on a big tangent there, but basically going back to does does the pseudoscience hurt the exercise science, health and wellness as a discipline? What'd you think about that section?
So I didn't have much on there. I think that's when they kind of talked about the difference between misinformation and disinformation.
Hmm.
And I think misinformation is they interpreted it wrong or something, and then disinformation is they are willingly spreading wrongful information, which can be really hard to distinguish between, especially in the fitness world and like how research is conducted. But I think this was kind of the wrap up that segued into the final section, which was a call to action. They were kind of closely related to me, and this was definitely aimed to help people distinguish between dis and misinformation, which might require a little bit more legwork, may require a little bit of okay, like they're claiming this, but how, why, and where are they claiming this? And uh, part of what the author recommends is that um, the academics stay in the know and engage in social in the commercial sector. So people who are actually doing research and people who are know things should actually be the ones in social media and in doing like sharing their own professional giving professional context about things. And there are certain people out there that do that. I mean, I don't have a degree in anything, but we go over some studies. I mean, we talked about Lane Norton, who does some, who will go over certain sciences, and he actually has degrees and things. So there's a lot of people out there that do kind of debunk a lot of the science and things that go around, and those are which is kind of good because at least the other side of the argument is happening. You know, you have somebody claiming one thing, but then the other person can come in and actually be like, well, actually that's not quite right. And that actually that happened with the those Netflix documentaries, the What the
Hmm.
Health and whatever the one James Cameron and Arnold Schwarzenegger sponsored.
There's Fed
Um,
Up. Fed Up.
that's one. Um, God, what's the other one? There was, I
Game
forgot. I'll
Changers.
think of it. Yeah, Game Changers. Yeah, that one. So all
I've seen
those
them
they
all.
have. Yeah, I have not. I've only read the articles afterwards or listened to discussion podcasts after, which are entertaining in themselves. So I think that's a good. That's kind of the call to action that he was somewhat referring to, which I think is needs to happen.
Yeah, I will say if we get outside of 60 and 90-second clips on Instagram and TikTok, which unfortunately the world is moving more and more towards that. Um, I think podcasting is still a great place because when I first started podcasting many years ago, even before the Garage Mathlete podcast, back into the Better Humanology podcast days, the people who were the top of the health and fitness category um, were just so like fringe. Like they were people who like Dave Asprey and like Ben Greenfield. And I'm not saying anything bad about these guys specifically, but those were the guys who were the top. They just had a lot of experience, but they also had like very concrete opinions, opinionated about a lot of stuff, but it didn't necessarily mean it was the truth. And now I feel like that has actually changed because um, really what's happened, I don't think it's altruistic at all. I think some really smart people, whether that's like a nutritional PhD, a medical professional, or some other PhD, they're realizing the income potential in running like an online business or podcast or something like that. And so they're hopping on that bandwagon to monetize their knowledge essentially. Like Huberman is a great example of that. And, these like college professors and stuff who have pretty good podcasts, but they're also kind of at the top of their field. And so I don't have a problem with that. I think that the information quality gets a lot higher when you have an actual expert at the top as opposed to someone who just, barks the dog that barks the loudest. And so I think that that's awesome. I do think in some forms we're moving in the right direction, but I think in social media, I don't know if we ever will truly move in the right direction there. And so that was kind of my takeaway from getting through all this information for all the athletes out there. Like, we go over science, but all I've learned in covering science is that you can't read a study and say that this is the answer. Like, you can't. To be honest, I used to kind of think that. I would think like, okay, well, if there's a scientific study that backs it up, you need so many studies to back it up, to reconfirm, to repeat. Like, it takes so much data. You can't look at one thing and say that that's a fact. That's why those documentaries suck. That's why people who are a lot of influencers suck, because they're taking one thing and most of it I think is misinformation. That's the one where they're just idiots, right? It's like you're like,
Yeah, they
yeah,
are.
you thought you could interpret it, but you couldn't, right? And I'm sure we've given some misinformation by misinterpreting a study, but most of the time we just say like, here's what happened and
Yeah.
here's our take on it. We're not trying to like push anybody. We're not trying to put our flag in it or,
Hmm.
be like, this is the thing. We're just like mentioning it, but we're also not claiming to be research scientists or data analytic experts or anything like that. We're giving the coach's take on these scientific studies and what we think, and then we try and put into very real world information like I am right now at the end, where I'm like, hey, you just need to pick your information sources to the best of your ability. If you're listening to this podcast, I biasly think that you have a pretty good one because we're going to cover a lot of different types of science, and we're going to give you the coach's take and the more practical application we think of those things and how you could get into it in a very real world. How can I succeed long term approach? That's our idea of success in this podcast, is giving information like that. But staying away from like learning something in 30 seconds on Instagram and then communicating that to someone else. I mean, I just think that's a huge foul, and I think that that's what people do. Like, they'll see a clip of something or a 2-minute YouTube video, and then they're like, from that small base of information, they actually start another conversation with somebody about it as if they're coming with authority. Like, hey, I saw this and I know it's to be true, and like I can talk about this. Like, you can't. You barely know what the hell you're talking about. Beyond those 2 minutes, you have no further education or research in it. So, anyway, choose your information sources wisely is my big takeaway for really arming yourself for the future in all areas.
Yeah. And information on the internet can always be received in such a wide array from people. There's some who are going to believe nothing that you have to say, and others that are going to believe everything. And so, and everything in between. And, getting the information out. And I think that's when like credibility can be an issue for that. And one thing that was part of this call to action is teaching the exercise science people of the future to like be better trained in school for like going over studies and how legit certain science is, and if it should even be credible or used. Because I mean, sometimes we've talked about studies, and we'll most every study we talk about, we will critique it in some certain way about like, we're not sure why they did this, they probably should have done this, they would have liked to do it like this. And that's kind of why and that's it's kind of how they should be conducted, because not every study is going to be perfect or end all be all. But at the end of the day, even though with this call to action and wanting better changes, which I definitely am for, it's still going to be a money talks kind of thing, marketing wise, pushing products, but also the research itself, because a lot of research is like privately funded. So certain nutrition and food companies will have paid to have research funded for their products so that they can cite, hey, our thing does this. This is what this study showed, and ignore the fact that we hired this company to create a study to show this thing, and that's just how it's going to be. So knowing that is still occurs, and seeing how those studies are being conducted. But one positive, which I shared a couple weeks ago, but this only just happened about a month ago, is that the White House, this is in the U.S., they have announced all publicly funded research will be available free to the public and everywhere that has publicly funded research. So whenever you go to look at studies, sometimes it can be hard for us to find full text of studies. All you see is the abstract. Well, by 2025, any publicly funded studies have to be free to the masses to read, so people can do more research, so you can have more information at your fingertips to actually read some. And I mean, studies can be hard to distinguish sometimes. Once you get, it takes a while to get used to it, but you can also skip to certain sections, but that's a whole other thing. So that's still a good step to where more information, more studies are being available to more people. Maybe that can help with some of this call to action and trend.
Yeah, and I think if you're not in the health and fitness industry and you're like you don't really understand like what we're talking about, why it's a problem, I think a good context to put it in for people is COVID. It just happened, and I think we're at a spot where we can talk about this and it not be like controversial or like whatever. But just remember, like everyone, go back as you're going through COVID from March 2020 until I don't know, but Joe Biden said the pandemic ended like last month or something like that. Officially came out on 60 Minutes. So I guess we can call that the official end date if we want to get official. But what's funny is you saw that happen from a research side. If you were just alive during the pandemic, you saw what happened, what we're talking about in the health and fitness industry. And what would happen would be a study would come out and two different types of people would interpret the study insanely different on like COVID or a vaccine or like whatever. And so you just saw this happen in real time. But in reality, all that was actually happening was science. And science is wrong. They'll have a study that's incorrect, done improperly. A new study has to happen. And so what the mass public saw was the scientific method happen in real time on a global public platform. Like that's what happened during COVID. So what I'm saying is not even controversial. Maybe just a realization statement for people is like, why was there wrong and then they're right, and then like, again, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy. I really not like. I don't think that human beings are smart enough to purposefully like have conspiracies. And so I just think that what we saw happen wasn't necessarily the agenda of any right or left wing. It was the scientific uh, process happening in real time. And so there would be a right, and then there would be a wrong, and then they'd be like, oh, and now I feel like we kind of have the facts together of like who it affected most, who it was a problem for, but it took 2 years for all of that data to tease itself out. But you saw what happened when any one person would grab one thing and run with it. They'd scare the shit out of people and like get on the rooftops and start screaming it. That's what's happening right now in the health and wellness industry. And I think that'll put in better context for people because there's so much, like there used to be a tiny bit of research. Like if we went back 15 years, there was not that much research being done in nutrition or health and fitness. And now there's being a ton of it. And so then some Instagram influencer can grab one thing, they can have a following of 1.3 million people. And now they have just like infiltrated the minds of a lot of people with some misinformation. And that's what's happening. It's happening at an alarming rate. And that's what he points out in his paper. And this is going to be bad for the public overall if we don't start getting information from the proper places.
Yeah. And with your example for the last 2 years, it's 2 years. But health and fitness, I mean, these have been kind of stretched. It hasn't been as much urgency, so it's been kind of stretched across decades. So that way back when there was only a couple of anti like the anti-fat craze started from just a couple of studies, and it lasted decades because there was not that much information out there, and it wasn't that great of a study or information in the first place. But it had such a such a huge effect, domino effect, ripple effect, whatever you want to call it, for a very long time. But now with more information, there's probably going to be a lot more sudden changes, more radical changes here and there, but at least when there's a bad one, it at least spring back to the good side, because somebody will be able to either dissect it more or call BS on bad science, disinformation, whatever it is.
All right, I think we can wrap that one up. And
It's very different from normal, but I think it was pretty good discussion from the unusual.
yeah, no, it's a fun one. I think it's necessary conversation. But let's get into the workout, man. Plank you, Tyler. What's up, guys? Did you know that I wrote a book? Kind of crazy that it's out there and I almost never talk about it. The book is called Killing Comfort. And what you may not know is that I just lowered the price of the book to the lowest allowable level on Amazon. And you might be asking, why would I do such a thing? And the answer is because I want to put my money where my mouth is and prove I am here to help as many people as I possibly can. And I won't have the price of the book stand in the way. It's also on Audible if you want to hear me read it, but I can't actually adjust the price there. It's automatically set by Amazon on that platform. Either way, you can go to Amazon or killingcomfort.com and get the book at its lowest possible price. If you like the book, I'd love a positive review and 5-star rating if you see fit on Amazon. Leaving your review is a great way to help us help more people. All right, back to the show. All right, so Plank you, Tyler. You want to brief it?
Yeah. So this is the epitome of simple, not easy.
I love this one.
I bet you do. And funny enough, Tyler, who inspired this workout, is on the podcast this week as of publishing this. So this episode will come out Monday. He was back on the podcast, interviewed him. Another good chat that we published on Wednesday, and this is the Meet Yourself Saturday. So all of the stars aligned. So workout, you will, and that's why it is plank you, Tyler. You will accumulate 10 minutes in the plank. That's it. But every time you break or rest and have to come out of your plank, you have to run a mile and do 50 hand release push-ups. And competitors, as always, wear a vest, because why not?
Because that's how you just make everything
Why
hard. Just
not?
throw a vest on. I did a quarter mile of walking lunges the other day. Or let's say I've done it twice in the last quarter, like last 3 months. And I did it without a vest on the first time because I was like, I haven't done this in a while. I just want to make sure it's not going to like wreck me. I did a quarter mile of walking lunges, barely in effect. I was like, I'm not sore at all. Like that was fine. I woke up the next day. I put a vest on. This past Saturday, I did it. That's kind of like my Meet Yourself Saturday. I was quite sore the next day. So a vest makes a difference. It's only 20 pounds, but it's something about it. It's just like, especially when you're getting into volume. That's a lot of volume, additional volume. But this one, simple, not easy. What do you have? Tips, tricks?
Not really any tips. This is kind of one of those fixed workouts that you can't really game. You just have to hold that plank for as long as you possibly can. The only tip that I would kind of say, and this is my gaming, is when you have to drop and fail and you go and do your mile and 50 push-ups, hand release push-ups, is you don't necessarily need to go. I say you don't need to go all out for those. I mean, they should be fairly intentional and fast, but give yourself a little bit of a breather before you go into your plank, because if you're winded and, doing hand release push-ups in general, any of those things, you're still going to somewhat use your core, but take a little bit of a rest so that the next plank you hold can be much, much longer. So you're not running 6 miles.
All right, whatever. Don't do that.
Jerred says, nope, just go as fast as you can. There's no rest. You're going to do your push-ups and then you're going to go right into your forearms and mid-rep.
I would say make that choice when you're getting close to the end. If you can only hold the plank for like 60 seconds at a time and you're getting 9 miles into this workout, like, okay, let's take Joe's advice. But if you honestly are like, you have to break at 8 minutes and you only have one left, like you're only at the plank one more time, just get it done. Just do it fast. Push yourself.
It's not in these notes, but I do think I thought we put in a 60-minute time cap. Does that sound or no?
Doesn't sound right to me.
Doesn't? All right. No.
Maybe I don't. It's not in. It's not
Take
in
that
these
cap
notes.
off. Nope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, wait, 9 miles? What the hell? That would be
Yeah,
brutal.
because I said 6 miles because I've done the calculations because I suck at planks. I'm like, well, this is a 6 mile workout because that's when I'll hit 60 minutes. But yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
9 miles.
So my only tip for this one, it might actually end up making you run more, but that's whatever. You need perfect form on the plank.
Oh yeah,
It should go without saying, because anytime we mention an exercise being done, you should have perfect form. But just make sure you're knocking out good form. You don't want to be sagging your hips down to the ground or pointing your butt up in the air, especially the sag. Like, that's going to be bad for your lower back and put some unnecessary pressure on it. So just don't do that. Don't try and extend your plank by going into bad form. Just run the mile. Just do the work. If you have to break, because it's going to be worse for you and your body to try and cheat it, to go poor form to extend your time. It's not going to be worth it, is what I'm saying. So just don't do it. That's my only tip.
yeah. Form.
All right, cool. Well, I think that's it. We'll get out of here on this one. So for any athletes, doing the programming, you guys are doing awesome. Keep knocking it out. I know the start of the cycle is always a tough one, an adjustment, because we switch things up. But we're nearing the end of that adjustment period, and the next waves are going to be great. And then anyone who's thinking about joining, we do run our 12-week cycles in 4-week waves. So while the start of a new cycle is a great place to start, also starting at a new wave is a great place, because you're inserting into a new 4-week wave. Things are new, things are changing. And so that's a great place to start. So if you'd like to do that, you can go to garagegymathlete.com and sign up for a 14-day free trial. But that's all for this one. Remember, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. Athlete Podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.